Welcome to Volvo Ocean Race headquarters here in Alicante for the 1300 Daily Show. I've got Conrad Coleman here, and we were trying to bring you live images of Team Axel Nobel out on the water on leg 8, but sadly we haven't been able to make the connection. We're going to keep trying in the background to find out exactly where the boat is right now, exactly how they're sailing. This is the team that we're trying to connect to. These were images of them, sadly, sailing a little while ago. But if we do get a chance to bring you the live images, we will. However, important for you guys to know, we are planning to talk to Team Axel Nobel in tomorrow's show. We're going to dial into them before we come on air, and we need your questions. If you've got any thoughts about how it is they're sailing the boat, how they're doing on this leg in the Volvo Ocean Race overall, or indeed just anything sailing related, put it in the comments below on this video, and then we will scan for the best ones, and then tomorrow we will pass them on. So, meanwhile, let's take a look at where the fleet are right now in the live positions. We have cleared the coast of Brazil. We are back out into the open ocean. We are through the doldrums, light patch, and now the fleet are sailing along. Out in the lead, the yellow track, Team Brunel. Big boat speed, 17, 18. We've seen 19 knots earlier. Dongfeng race team out to the western side, 21 knots plus with Turn the Tide on plastic, sitting in third. Just behind them, Vestas Elementar racing into their home port in America. In fourth place, fifth place, Spanish Team Mafre. Not having a great leg so far. Behind them, Team Axel Nobel. And then, with some miles to make up and with very few tactical options, we have Sun Hun Kai Scallywag. Well, it was good news for fans of Team Brunel out in the lead, and Bauer Becking, skipper of Team Brunel, sent in this little update just before we came on air.
It's been actually a good night for Team Brunel. We ran into the lead, we dodged through some clouds and have been sailing fast, so all going well.
All going well for Team Brunel. And don't forget, if you've got any questions for Team Axel Nobel, who we're going to be talking to tomorrow, put them in the comments and we will pass on the best ones. So, Conrad, let's just talk about some of the challenges that these teams are facing, because one thing has hit, and it's hit pretty hard, the Sargasso seaweed. Onboard Team Axel Nobel, Emily Nagel and crew sent in this update.
So we've just crossed the equator and we've started getting into all of the Sargasso seaweed. And that's all the kind of this brown spiky seaweed that we see everywhere. It can be in anywhere from tiny little clumps to just boat-sized clumps of this stuff, and it tends to gather in kind of little tidal patches.
This is what we call an endoscope. And so you look at the top, and it's got a little prism at the bottom here that directs your vision at 90 degrees, and you can see everything under the water. So yeah, we've got some more weed on, we'll try and get it off.
And when there's not a lot of wind, it means you're ending up with quite a lot of drag for your speed going forwards. So not going forwards fast enough to blow it off. So it's just causing more and more drag and makes it a lot harder for the helmsman to steer.
And the only really way to get it off is to physically stop the boat and make the boat sail in reverse. Basically we do that on the big boat. You just fill the big sail, push the boom out, and the helmsman uses the rudders the other way, and we go backwards. But the whole procedure probably lasts a minute. You can clear the rubbish off your foils and then you can get going.
Jules Salter on board Team Axel Nobel, and Conrad, okay, the worst case scenario, the back down, teams do have to do it. He thinks 1 minute to complete that whole thing. That seems optimistic to me.
Well, I've sailed through here a bunch and on a number of different boats. And certainly I think that he's been a little bit disingenuous. 1 minute to do all of that, I think, is a little bit unrealistic. I think it's more likely to be something in the order of 3 minutes. Because think about all the different steps you need to do in order to go head to wind and go make the boat go backwards. You need to bear away, furl the sail, and then go all the way, head to wind, wait for the speed to bleed off, because these boats are quite heavy, so they carry their inertia a long way. Then you need to push out the mainsail, hang on to it, wait for the boat to stop, then go backwards, then bear away again, unfurl the sail, sheet on, I think it's going to be at least 3 minutes to do that.
And what would that 3 minutes mean in terms of distance when we talk about, you know, miles won, lost?
Well, good question, because it all depends on boat speed. When the boat was going slowly in that clip there, maybe, you know, around 7 knots, 3 minutes is only worth 600, 700 meters. Whereas, you know, I just checked now and the boat's going 20 knots. And so if you need to spin the boat then 3 minutes is going to cost you a full mile.
A full mile potentially on one little clump of weed. And this Sargasso seaweed, I mean, it's no joke really, because structurally it's quite unique and quite potent.
Well, yeah, it's not just little ribbons of seaweed like you might be used to seeing at the beach. You know, this is what it looks like. It's quite unique, as you say. It's got these little spiky leaves and then these little air bladders, and they all sort of clump together, aggregate together to make these big islands that Emily was just talking to you about. Now, I've prepared a little bit of a demonstration to sort of indicate about how challenging this can be and why it's such a problem. So come with me onto this other camera here. Now I've been scrounging around the boatyard and I've come up with a spare Volvo 65 rudder, or at least something that looks a bit like it. So the rudders have this beautiful sort of aerodynamic or hydrodynamic profile, really, really smooth, and they're sanded and polished down to a mirror finish. And so the shape of this is absolutely fundamental to its doing its job correctly. Now, I looked in the cupboard and we were all out of seaweed. However, I had some flour, some butter, some sugar, some chocolate chips, and so I made up some cookie dough. And it was pretty good. So if you can imagine that this is a sort of spiky ball of seaweed, and it's there in the water and the boat's moving through it, and so it sort of gets stuck onto the leading edge of the rudder. Well, that is pretty good. The next bit that comes along is going to sort of interlock with its Velcro features there, and so the clump gets bigger. And then you've got more little spiky arms reaching out, and so the next bit that comes along makes a bigger bump and a bigger bump, and it just, you know, it just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And so this makes you know, a big amount of drag because you've got this big ball of stuff that's hanging on out there. Imagine this is seaweed, not cookie dough, and gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and so it ruins the shape. It makes a lot of drag, a lot of turbulence, and it stops the rudder from doing its job properly and slows the boat down. And when you're going 20 knots, it just gets rammed on there with more and more force. And so the only way to get rid of it is actually to spin the boat and dump it off.
Okay, so the new seaweed then is obviously a little bit of a challenge. And as you say, sometimes you just have to go into reverse, you just have to go backwards and shed that time and that distance. Is that the only challenge that these teams are facing now, strategically, as we sort of get into this a little bit more of a drag race situation?
Well, no, not really. I mean, we started off by saying this leg was pretty cut and dried, but actually it's been full of challenges. We've got all of the craziness with the clouds, all of the randomness with the clouds. Now we've got these random islands of seaweed coming up. But let's have a look at the weather, because that's the big thing that's going to determine who is the winner and who's the loser in the coming days. Well, this is the big high-pressure zone that we talked about yesterday. And so there's this massive anticyclone that's dominating the North Atlantic at the moment. And they're going to be blazing along, doing 450, 500 miles every single day as they cruise up past the coast of South America, up past the Caribbean. And then as they approach the North Atlantic, the northeast coast of the United States, well, you've got a jibe to do and then potentially some trickiness right at the end. But basically, there's more wind on the left, and I think that Dongfeng is doing a great job of really aggressively defending the left-hand side.
Now, you mentioned a little something there. You said sort of potentially a little bit less wind, you know, as we're going forward, and we've certainly talked about this a lot over the last few days, about this potential slowdown for the front runners as we get into the finish line in Newport. And, well, Libby Greenhouse, navigator on Sun Hung Kai Scallywag, is certainly hoping for that.
In theory, they'll get into the breeze earlier, so they'll get further away. And the bungee between the front and back will stretch. But wait till the 7th of May, watch this space. The maximum elasticity of that bungee will be coming into action, and we will be coming in hard behind the fleet.
Will that bungee snap?
I hope not.
Fingers crossed on board Sun Hung Kai Scallywag for navigator Libby Greenhouse. I mean, you've got to keep your crew optimistic, but could we see that? I mean, could we see the front runners park up?
Yes, it is forecast, but it's for a week, more than a week away, and so the forecast is still sort of coming together. But that is forecast. But remember, we saw this 3 years ago in the last edition of the race, that as soon as the boats got into the, close to the coast and sort of in line between the tip of Long Island and Nantucket and sort of Block Islands and all of this sort of Long Island Sound, that sort of feeds into Newport. Well, the wind shut off, and it's forecast to do the same again. So yes, potentially the leaders will slow down, but remember already Team Song Hong Kai is 162 miles behind, and that is increasing at the moment. So I certainly wouldn't peg your chances on sort of that bungee coming into play again with such a big delta already. But just remember, Abu Dhabi lost that leg to Dongfeng Race Team by just 3 minutes. We were just talking about 3 minutes. 3 minutes is worth one island of weed. And so it is totally conceivable that this 5,700 mile leg and 3 weeks of racing at sea could be determined by one totally random island of seaweed.
And that really could be all it's about, isn't it? And out on the water at the moment, as you're saying, in what looks to be a fairly good position right now, down to the west of the fleet is Dongfeng Race Team. Just before we came on air, I got the chance to speak to skipper Charles Cordrellia, and a big change in the weather that we're seeing from 24 hours ago.
It's important to be west, and it will be difficult at one point to go west. And very happy about the last schedule. We were a bit afraid to lose in the doldrum. And so, it's good news.
Well, if you're happy about being to the west, you must be ecstatic about Mafre being in the east, your main rival on the overall, and not so far having a good leg.
They are not in the match since a few days, but we know they never give up. But of course, for the moment, it's just perfect. But we have a strong opponent with Brunel, winner of the last leg, and we can see that they are really, really good now and fast, really fast. Probably the faster boat on this leg since the start.
Earlier on, at the beginning of the leg, you said that you were feeling very tired and not too happy about being back at sea. But right now, I imagine you're just enjoying the racing.
To be honest, I will. Of course, in the position we are, I have a bit of stress. I have to be honest. So. But yes, I'm much better. I was sick the week before the start of the leg, and I was really exhausted the first 4 days because I was recovering from my sickness. And it was really, I never feel so tired in my life on the boat. But now I'm back.
I'm just wondering how you as skipper deal with those stressful moments. What do you do to stay on top of your emotions?
If I don't control it, I will do mistake. And so I try to forget. I just try to think it's just a game, and even if it's most important race for me in my life, maybe I try to think that to remember why I'm here. I'm here because I like sailing, I like racing, and just take pleasure on be on a boat with my friend and realize how lucky I am to be skipper of. This team for the second time. I mean, it's a child dream. I never imagined I could skip one day a boat on the Volvo Ocean Race, even if I wanted to do it. I know you need to have a lot of luck to have the opportunity. It's not only about being a good sailor, and so I try to remember that. But of course, I also remember that's why I'm stressed that so many people have worked so hard to put us in this good condition, and we have worked so hard since 2 years to be at the top, and we made so much sacrifice with my family and everything. So of course it's important if I can win, but I must remember that it's only a game, and it's not very so important at the end, and it's a passion. It's not a real job.
Some honest emotion from Charles Cordrellia, the skipper of Dongfeng Race Team. And Conrad, I mean, for any competitor in the Volvo Ocean Race, but for the skipper as well, I mean, it's got to be an honour out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And you need to remember the fact that this is a project of a lifetime that he talked about, that as a skipper and as a project manager, you need to create yourself as a sailor, but also you need to create the relationship with the sponsor and put the whole thing together and carry all the weight of the expectations with your crew and indeed your sponsor with you. So it's a lot of weight on your shoulders, and I think that he's dealing with it really well. But frankly, any day that you're out on the sea, and particularly as a skipper, you have to pinch yourself because this is truly a dream come true.
But the icing on that cake would surely be to lift the trophy for the Volvo Ocean Race, to be victorious all the way down to The Hague for the final time across the line. But his opponent in this game, Xavi Fernandez, has set a real standard for the rest of the fleet to catch up with. Before the boats left Irjaí for the start of leg 8, we had a little bit of a sit down with the Spanish Olympic legend and talked to Xavi Fernandez about how the team were going and what he feels about the race ahead. Mafre are competing with one bold aim: victory in the Volvo Ocean Race for Spain, in this, the country's 5th attempt. After finishing in 4th place overall last time out, it's fair to say that Mafre looks stronger than ever before in this edition. Skipper Xavi Fernandez has built a mixed and multinational squad, from Olympic gold medalists and America's Cup winners to some of the most highly regarded offshore sailors on the planet, and he's happy with his crew.
A lot of talent in the boat, very good young guys and very good old men as well. So our approach as a team has been to try to get the best crew as possible, which I think we have done.
2-leg wins in the early stages of the race established Mafre as a real contender. But Xavi knows how long the road to a victory in the Volvo Ocean Race is.
Consistency is the key. You don't need to win any leg to win the Volvo in reality. And you know, we've seen Dongfeng very strong always, very good boat speed and sailing very consistent. They haven't won a leg yet. I'm sure they will.
Xavi's confidence in his crew is clear. Unlike the rest of the field, the team have made only 2 temporary changes to their lineup since the start of the race, and both were caused by injury. And he plans to keep the same team together whenever possible, starting with the brains of the operation, navigator Juan Villa.
We have the best navigator in the fleet, so the truth is that no one likes to step off, no one likes to change, and I think one of the goals for us is to do the whole race together.
After finishing second in the first leg, then winning the next 2, Mafre were looking dominant. But the rest of the fleet started to find their speed, and with some surprising leg winners, the points on the scoreboard tightened up.
Now everyone is contesting to win any leg, but I still think that even in the same conditions, we have a very good crew and boat to win any leg. So it's going to be harder, of course.
On leg 7 in the Southern Ocean, they were forced to suspend racing when their mainsail split into 2 pieces. The boat limped across the finish line in 5th, their worst result so far. This saw their 5-point lead disappear, and they now sit 2nd overall. With less and less points up for grabs as the race heads towards its conclusion, Xavi's strategy to take back the top spot may have to change.
It's going to be a very exciting race from here on, but you know, we have to attack it more and not when you are in the lead with few points. The truth is you have to look the opposition as well, and now we start being in a situation where we have to push like leg 1 or leg 2, and I think it's better for us and we will sail better.
Well, that was the situation before the boats took to the water on leg 8. Now, on this race right now, the boat that has set the standard early on in the Volvo Ocean Race is struggling. 5th place at the moment for the Spanish team. Pablo Arata, crew member on board Mafre, took the time to dial into us and give us an update as to what was happening right now as the boat was flying along, reaching of 20 knots of boat speed after seeing the worst of the doldrums behind them.
Yeah, we just passed the doldrums, and they have been a little bit more active than we thought. So we've been 24 hours sort of stuck, and actually it has been quite hard because we are a little bit further away than the other boats, and we were waiting the skate every 6 hours to know if they had the same note, because the doldrums sometimes you get the line and you can pass through, and well, it hasn't been as good as we expect. We expect to catch up a little bit more with the other guys, but not too bad neither, no?
And we've seen some seaweed on the race course as well. In the light winds, how bad has it been? Have you had to back down yet?
Actually, no, not that much, because it has been that light that the boat was almost a knot of boat speed, and the width doesn't get stuck in the keel, so with the waves they come off. And then we got the breeze, and with this breeze we have to broach sometimes and do some tricks to get rid of them, because yeah, you see the boat speed coming down, and sometimes you lose the rudder because it's stalled. And yeah, it's a lot of seaweed. It's amazing. This is like a Christmas tree, the boat on all the lifelines and the stanchions.
Now let's turn our attention to the strategy. You're out on the east, Dongfeng race team's out on the west. Who do you think's got it right?
Hopefully us. Well, now at the beginning of the leg, we got stuck in a couple of clouds and we didn't sail very well, and we got a little bit on the back foot of the fleet. So the weather didn't give us at the beginning. It didn't give us any chance, and suddenly open a gate on the east, as we are now. And it doesn't mean that it's going to be right, but at least it's an option, an opportunity.
Well, give us an update then on your boat speed. Your electronics have been a little bit of a problem. I'm wondering now how your fix on the keel is going.
Well, actually, Nieti, Xavi and Joan, they have been working hard, and they did a great job to fix everything, because it's not very easy. The PLC broke, and the keel, we have to do it manually, and luckily the electronics, all the sailing instruments are working perfectly. So we are sailing 100% now. We can't complain. Actually, we thought in the moment that it will be a mess and it will be difficult to sail normal, and now we are. So it's good. I mean, we just focus on the boat speed. Right now we're having 20 to 23 knots, so it's perfect. Fast boat and fast speed, and that's it.
Pablo Rate on board Mafre and Conrad. Reading between the lines a little bit here, Dongfeng race team, they're happy with where they are, but you know, from what Pablo was saying there, Mafre kind of know they've been caught out on the wrong side.
Well, yeah, you know, and sometimes that happens in offshore racing. That, you know, you want to go left, but the shift keeps on bringing you right, and then you fall off the back of a system, and you don't have a choice anymore. That's kind of what's happened there. They've been forced up to the right-hand side because they've been a little bit slow and haven't been able to make that dive left when they wanted to. Or indeed, it could have been that they missed a shift and when they couldn't move their keel and actually couldn't tack or drive to get over to the other side. So they've almost sort of ended up on the right-hand side by default, whereas if you look at the tracker now, and I just wanted to remind you one thing, it is live now, but the sailors only get the positions 4 times a day. So every 6 hours they get those skids as per usual, but you at home get them, you know, live. So you can check out now where the Dongfeng is aggressively defending the left-hand side or the western side. And so you can see on the tracker here, these are their live positions. And if you look closely, you can see that the red line on the left-hand side and the yellow line of the leader of Brunel are slowly diverging. And so that means that Dongfeng race team is faster. You can see that on the speeds right there, but also sailing lower. So they are aggressively pushing out to the west-hand side.
Okay, well, I want to bring the comparison, stay with Mafre and Dongfeng race team. I want to have a little bit of a look at something here when we dialed in to do those live X calls. This is the stern shot from Mafre that came in just before we went on air, and a reef in the main. Now, if you take a look at the same stern shot, the same angle, the same camera, Dongfeng race team, full main. Now, these boats were 100 miles apart. They still are on either sides of the race course, but how different is the breeze?
Well, it's pretty similar, and again, I encourage you to go and check this out on the conditions live. You can see true wind direction, true wind speed, true wind angle on the boats, but when that was recorded, there was a 25-degree difference between the boats, not in terms of their track over the water, but the actual true wind angle experienced by the boats. And so the fact that Mafre was sailing higher to the wind, or more on a beam reach, and Dongfeng was more in a low mode with the wind sort of more behind them, allowed them to carry the full main. So when you're sailing away from the wind, you get the opportunity to put up more sail area and still hold control of the boat.
And I'm wondering as well, Sophie Seasick, who has been a part of Mafre's crew since the beginning and a vital part as well, we know that an elbow injury has forced her off for this leg, and it was a last-minute decision, so they haven't brought on a replacement. We know that they've cut their weight down to the wire, so one less person up on the windward side, plus all their gear.
Yeah, it's a bit of an interesting strategy that they've got there, and clearly they had their hand forced by them. No, we saw previously at the very start of the race that Songkhun Kaiskaleweg were running a light ship policy. They started out with 7 and then went to 8 people on board and then finally went to 9. So clearly that is the optimum. And so Mafre is now sailing with 8. So you're right, you're one man down in terms of all the maneuvers. You're on, even worse, one man down because you've got one person inside the boat manually controlling the keel during the maneuvers. And then you're right to talk about weight. You know, these boats, they're quite sort of tender, they're quite tippy. They like weight on the rail, particularly for a 2,500 mile reaching leg where any lack of right alignment is really going to show up. And so it's not just one person, you know, 60, 70, 80, 100 kilos, whatever, in the body, but you also need to add in all of the food that they're going to eat and all of the equipment, and you know, one person can be worth 200, 250 kilos on the rail, so it's really expensive.
Expensive for Mafre then, having Sophie down, but however, very good news to know that their keel workaround, shall we say, is operating fully and their instruments are back up at full functionality. So that means that boat is operating at 100% speed, and having your instruments out there in the middle of the ocean, especially at night, can be crucial.
Sailing by night on these boats is pretty fun actually, especially if there's a moon out. Sometimes during the day you really concentrate on trying to catch all the waves, whereas at night you can just rely on the feel and the instruments and not worry about catching waves, and sometimes it's even faster. You have to always be vigilant and have a really good feel for what's going on because you can't see what's going on. So yeah, there's generally a more serious tone, I would say, to night sailing than there is to day sailing.
And besides your feel, you use the numbers on the mast. We set them on night vision mode, what we call it, is the numbers instead of white light, they go red, because the white light blinds you and the red light is your night vision.
By night for us it's a big change because by day it's okay, by night we've got always the head torch of Pascal. Just here at the hatch looking at us. It's okay? No, it's not okay, we don't see anything anymore. It's all purely done on feel and what the boat's behaving like. Pretty cool when you get it right, and it's not so good when you get it wrong.
Many tough nights ahead for the teams as 2,000 miles remain in this leg. Now, don't forget, tomorrow we're going to be speaking to Team Axel Nobel. We want your help to come up with some good questions. And we've had some good questions already from Franz Leichnauer. Question for Axel Nobel: are the sailors limited in any way to move around in light winds to avoid that they might slow down the boat by changing their weight? Great questions. We want more of those. If your question is good, we'll put it on the list and then we'll put it to the team tomorrow, and join us for the daily show tomorrow at 1300 UTC to find out whether your question got in there. But now let's have a little bit of an update on our competition. We were running, very simple question, which boat was going to get to the equator first, or which day and at which time? This was the prize. A rather fantastic poster signed by the 7 skippers of the Volvo Ocean Race. It is a poster from the Alicante stopover, the home of the Volvo Ocean Race, and it could be yours. Well, no, it's actually going to one person. The winner is Blair Schmeich. Just 2 minutes, that was the difference. Just how close he got to the right answer. Another answer was just 1 minute out. It was so close, we had to trawl through all the answers to make sure that we got it right. But Blair Schmeich, congratulations, well done. I'm sure we're going to have another competition in the wings pretty soon. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have a quick fix for you. And then at 1300 UTC, the Daily Show with Team Axel Nobel joining us with your questions. Plus, we're going to find out who is gaining at the moment. Is it Dongfeng Race Team out there on the west? Or is Mafre on the east going to charge around the fleet as we approach the finish line in Newport? We'll see you tomorrow.